PlayEmber is a mobile game studio, and with me is the co-founder and the chief marketing officer, John Hook, to explain what PlayEmber is all about. So let's just start, John. I mean, tell me about you, your background. What was it that led you to found PlayEmber?
Good morning, Jay. Thanks for having us on. So it's been a really interesting journey. So started very much off in Web2, more on the monetization side. So the first company I built was a mobile monetization solution, when really there wasn't much around bar AdMob and sort of crazy frog ringtones. And my co-founder and I were at Mobile World Congress at the time, and lots of brands were coming to us saying, "Hey, how do we advertise on mobile?" So we built a mobile ad network and work with sort of Fortune 500 companies, media agencies to help them make their first step into mobile brand advertising, and exited that after a couple of years to Funware in the US. And then since then, ran Ad Colony in Europe, so one of the biggest sort of mobile video gaming SDKs. Spelt then moved to the publishing side, working for Oma Games in Paris, and they're doing amazingly well. They just did their 100 million round. Worked at Boombit for a couple of years. And then actually when I was at Boombit is where I met Hugo, the co-founder and now very good friend of mine. So the really history of PlayEmber is we had a very successful mobile game studio, and Hugo had published 6 games with Voodoo, Outlovin, Quali, and I'd really wanted to work with him on the sort of publishing game distribution side. So we co-created PlayEmber about a year ago now, and brought most of his sort of core game development team with him.
Ah, interesting.
So PlayEmber is about a year and a half old now,
Okay.
and we've had 100 million downloads and 5 million DAU. So it's been a really exciting journey to date.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I don't have to tell you this. It's been a tough year for Meta and Metaverse and Web3 and crypto. And what do you think it will take to be able to get, mobile gamers? What will be the catalyst to onboard Web3 games?
So it's something Hugo and I were looking at a lot when we made this transition into Web3, and we kind of kept hearing about onboarding the next 2-3 billion gamers, and we looked at the sort of whole space and the first wave of GameFi. We noticed a few things. First of all, we noticed that sort of a protocol is just an application layer, and to get billions of people on board, that you need content applications just like you do in Web2. And we really struggled to find a really good game, and any game that was better than anything that existed in the mobile app stores already. The second thing that we saw is all these huge barriers to playing games that you don't get in mobile. So, $100, $1,000, $5,000 paid wall that we in Web3 we call it an NFT. You have this complicated wallet set up depending on which chain you're on, that you need to be a sort of crypto native to really understand. And then this whole narrative around tokens and crypto, and I think that's part of the challenge as well, in terms of for mobile gamers, mass market gamers that are not crypto natives. There's some sort of reputational things when they hear words like crypto, and obviously there's some very high profile news at the moment in the mainstream press that really doesn't help. So I think really, when you wrap that all together, what's it going to take? It's going to take us as a sort of gaming industry getting back to basics and making amazing games that people will love playing, showing and giving them practical use cases for blockchain technology within mobile games, where normal people that play mobile games are like, okay, I get it now. This is really fun, without going really heavy on what happened in the first wave, where we're talking about tokens and expensive NFTs and complicated wallet setups. So I think really that's what needs to happen, and you're starting to see happen, is this idea now of blockchain gaming is actually mobile, versus in the first wave it was all very sort of browser based games.
Yeah.
So I think we're starting to see the right changes.
Yeah, it does feel like it's too complicated, I think, for some people, and it just needs to be simplified. And do you still have the goal of 1 million blockchain gamers onboarding that?
Yeah, we do. So it's kind of baby steps, right? It's really interesting in mobile gaming. It's all about getting that sort of like first million installs or play of your games. Whereas Web3, the really interesting aspect, there's many interesting aspects, but one of the interesting aspects is then this change in mentality to not necessarily getting like 1 million players. There's this, the VP at Axie Infinity, Quinn. I've done a few podcasts with him, so I want to give him the credit for this. But he talks about getting the first 10,000 co-owners of your project, which is a really interesting mindset shift, which is what I love about Web3. It's that idea of community ownership and some sort of return for the investment or time they put into your project. So for us, we definitely have that goal, and we're already on track based on the kind of current metrics we're seeing to delivering on this vision. But for us, really, it's about blending this world of Web 2 with all the, forget all the sort of FUD and the headlines about Web 3, but this real energy and sense of, ownership. And we have our own spin on that of Web 3 and bringing that into our mobile games.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very unique attribute of blockchain to be able to have that community, and it's a shame it hasn't taken off yet. So what do you think that the current studios lack today?
So I think when you look at mobile gaming, it's not a question of anything they lack, because actually they've got a lot that's going from them already, right? They make amazing games. They're very comfortable with Unity, sort of the main default game engine. It's just no one, if we think about consumers, the same with game studios, no one's really taught them or showed them sort of meaningful use cases of blockchain technology. The narrative has been, protocols raising significant amounts of money, and trying to get games onto their blockchain. And in that first wave, it's therefore all been about sort of pumping token prices and selling out NFTs to give them the liquidity to build the project. Whereas I think where things are going now, some of the gaming specific chains are starting to help game studios understand, okay, right, so blockchain gaming actually is coming mobile. Here's a sort of tool set and some infrastructure to help you build this, working with them on some really important areas such as sort of security. So I think that's a key part. But also there's this assumption that every mobile game studio wants to make a blockchain game. So, if you look at Unity's S1 filing, there are around 15 million game studios using Unity. Maybe at some point, if we fast forward quite a few years, maybe everything is just going to be built on the blockchain. We just don't know about it, and we drop these words Web 2 and Web 3. But I think right now it's unrealistic to think that all of those 50 million studios are going to just jump onto like blockchain gaming. So the reality is, when we look at the number of blockchain games versus where mobile game studios have the advantage at the moment, and what they're not lacking is they have ease of distribution in Web 2 that you just don't get in Web 3, because most consumers have a phone and predominantly on Apple or Google operating platforms, and they know where the app stores are on how to discover games. So actually, that's part of our thesis and what we're building. We believe that mobile game studios actually have a distinct advantage because they've already got amazing games with rich game economies and very discoverable games via the app stores. So really, our business model is built around that thesis that they already have some of the key ingredients that are lacking in Web3. They have an amazing game with billions of players. Yeah.
Now, why do you think so companies like Meta and Google and Apple, I mean, they're so wealthy and they have such a power over advertising, to the community. I mean, how does PlayEmber plan to kind of break that up, disrupt that model, so to speak?
So yeah, when we look at Web 2, I think the App Annie figure was $350 billion that's going to be spent on global mobile ad spend in 2022. So, in Web 2, you've mentioned some of the companies. You have this term called walled gardens. And what that means essentially is they are building up, closed walled gardens of first-party data around players that they are passively monetizing and taking the majority of the benefit for, and building all of their infrastructure around sort of enriching everything that they do in their whole technology stack. Now, when we look at Web3, the whole premise of Web3 is about decentralization. It's the opposite of walled gardens. So really what we're building out and using our mobile games as the content and the vehicle is our mission is to redistribute those billions of dollars that are locked in these walled gardens and redistribute them to players that are contributing heavily to the economy and being passively advertised in Web 2, to creators, to the game studios that are making these games and contributing, and also to brands and creators that also contribute to this sort of billions of dollars of advertising. So our vision is that, as a player, you should be able to play one of our games and walk across the street and, pay for your coffee with the value you've just contributed to our games and ecosystem. So that's really how we see it. It's not for us to judge whether companies are, good or bad in the Web2 business model. It's our role to create this beautiful gaming ecosystem in Web3 where, players and people that contribute have the fair opportunity to really get back something that is of value to them, to the game. And that's not necessarily this word play to earn, because value has many different meaning depending on where you are in the world.
Now, you mentioned brands and creators. So how do you plan to tap into them and let them be able to reach the community, engage with an audience? How does PlayEmber approach that situation?
So if you look at the way mobile games are built in Web2, you have an established ad model. You have interstitials, banners, rewarded videos, and in-app purchases. And we believe that ad revenue model is a key part to the sustainability of Web3 blockchain games, because as you can kind of see from the current market climate, the sort of NFT prices and liquidity of tokens linked to projects are really not healthy. So a key part of what we're doing actually is nothing new, in the sense that we are bringing that advertising revenue into our Web3 business model. However, really part of the vision and part of my career spent building ad products is really how blockchain advertising can really reinvent how brands and creators are able not just to reach, but really engage with their audiences. So rather than just putting an ad in a game that clicks to a mobile website and you fill in a form, this idea that we can actually directly link gaming to a brand's loyalty program, for example. But in our model, delivering a new customer that actually has liquidity to directly spend on their products and services. Again, not a new idea. I've already done it in Web2, where you can pay your mobile phone bill through playing games, for example, or the evolution of blockchain technology when it comes to live event ticketing. The idea you can play our games and win a ticket or a box to a live event, but actually it's sort of a fractional reward, and it's something that you and your friends are sort of social gaming to achieve. So there's many applications and interesting use cases for brands, and it's great to see CPG brands, entertainment brands already launching sort of NFTs, which shows us that that behavioral change is happening at a brand level as well.
Yeah. So how do you see the mobile gaming industry, say, in 10 years? What will it look like?
You know what? Since being in Web3, it's so hard to look beyond like the next quarter. Just things seem to change every week.
Yeah.
But what I hope, forget utopia, but what I hope in 10 years' time is, we're still talking about great games, because that's really what drives our whole our whole industry. Games that players love, and a really diverse set of games as well, because games are a representation of people at the end of the day, and there are so many different types of people that identify. Some identify as hardcore AAA gamers, some as mass casual gamers. So I really hope that we still have this rich industry of amazing games. But I hope from a Web3 perspective that really, as I said earlier, we're not talking about Web2 or Web3 anymore. We're literally just talking about gaming, and blockchain just neatly hides behind the scenes in terms of an infrastructure layer. But I think the really exciting innovation, when you wrap this all together, is this idea of sort of blending gaming, popular culture and content. There's a heavy fintech element here as well when you look at Web3 and what we can do through gaming, about the evolutions of potentially, checkings accounts, savings accounts, and also the future of commerce. So I'm really hoping that in 10 years' time, this idea of gaming as a driver for for commerce, for new business models, we've actually can look back and say, oh right, here, the potential, the Shopify of Web2 came from mobile games, for argument's sake, or some really huge brands that we don't even know existed. Like who is the supercell of Web3? In 10 years' time, we should know the answer to that. So I'm just really excited to be building this, but also alongside fellow builders in this space that really are forgetting all the noise, building infrastructure, tooling, and amazing content and businesses for the next 3, 5, 10 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I mean, it certainly feels like the potential is there for all of that to happen. I think just, things that are kind of come into place for it to happen, but feels like the technology is there to allow that. So
yeah, absolutely. The technology is there. And I think that's the great thing about the community at the moment, just switching off a lot of the noise and the rhetoric. And this is the perfect time to build when there's a lot of attention elsewhere.
yeah.
So when the world hopefully is a stronger and a happier place, you're going to see some amazing companies emerge.
Yeah. Well, John, thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts about PlayEmber and the gaming industry in general.
Thanks so much, Jane. Thank you for having us.